Most men think women are complicated, but let me tell you something that might sting a little. Women are not nearly as complicated as you've been led to believe. The truth is, if a woman can't stop thinking about you, it's not because you bought her flowers, sent her long goodnight texts, or spent hours proving you care. None of that actually lingers in her mind the way you think it does. What makes a woman think about you non-stop is much deeper, and it has less to do with what you give her and more to do with what you make her feel. Here's the controversial part. Women don't obsess over the nice guy who hands them everything on a silver platter. They obsess over the man who leaves them with questions, who sparks curiosity, who gives them something to think about when he's not around. That's the man who takes up space in her head when she's lying in bed at night or scrolling through her phone in the middle of the day. And here's where most men get it wrong. You've been told to be available, to always reassure her, to constantly show her how much you like her. But in reality, when you remove a little bit of that constant attention, when you create the right balance of connection and distance, that's when she starts wondering about you, replaying your words and craving your presence. It's not about manipulation. It's about understanding female psychology and how attraction really works. Today, we're going to break this down. I'm going to show you what actually makes a woman think about you non-stop. Not the fairy tale stuff you've been fed, but the real triggers that work in a woman's mind. Welcome to the channel. If you're serious about leveling up in your dating life and finally understanding how women really think, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. 1. The power of mystery. Why she needs to wonder about you. If there's one thing that makes a woman think about you long after you're gone, it's mystery. Not the fake kind where you play games or purposely ignore her, but the natural kind that comes from not showing all your cards at once. Men often think being open about everything is the fastest way to build trust and connection. But here's the reality. When she knows every little detail about you right away, there's nothing left for her to wonder about. Nothing left for her to imagine, and nothing left for her to chase in her mind. Think about it. People are wired to be curious about what they don't fully understand. Women are no different. When you reveal everything too quickly, you kill that curiosity. But when you allow her to see parts of who you are without rushing to explain everything, she starts to fill in the gaps. And when she's filling in those gaps, she's thinking about you. Imagine this. You meet a woman, you connect, and instead of trying to impress her with your entire life story, you hold back just a little. You share enough for her to feel intrigued, but not enough for her to feel like she has you all figured out. Later that night, she's lying in bed replaying the conversation, wondering about the parts you didn't reveal. That's mystery. That's what keeps her thinking about you non-stop. Mystery also shows up in how you live your life. If your entire routine is predictable, if she knows exactly what you'll say, what you'll do, and how you'll react, you become background noise. But if you have layers, different sides of yourself she hasn't seen yet, passions she doesn't fully understand, ambitions she can only guess at, she'll want to uncover more. And the more she wants to uncover, the more mental space you take up. This doesn't mean being secretive or dishonest. It simply means letting things unfold naturally. It means resisting the urge to explain every action, every feeling, every move you make. It's about knowing that the unknown is more powerful than the known when it comes to attraction. When you understand this, you stop over-explaining yourself and you stop rushing to give her all the answers. You become the man she thinks about long after the conversation ends, because there's still something about you she hasn't figured out yet. And trust me, women love figuring things out. 2. Scarcity creates desire. Stop being too available. One of the biggest mistakes men make is thinking that constant availability equals attraction. You think that by always answering her texts instantly, always being ready to hang out, and always making her the center of your world, you're showing her how much you care. But in reality, you're doing the opposite. You're killing her desire to think about you. Here's why. People don't value what's always available. Think about your own life. If you can have something anytime you want, it stops being exciting. It loses its spark. But when something is rare, when you can't get it whenever you feel like it, suddenly you want it more. That's basic human psychology, and women feel it deeply when it comes to men. When you're always there, she doesn't have to think about you. She doesn't have to miss you. She doesn't have to wonder what you're doing. You've removed all the tension. And tension, healthy, natural tension, is what creates attraction and keeps her mind on you. Now let me be clear. I'm not telling you to play hard to get in a fake, manipulative way. What I'm saying is that you need to have a life that doesn't revolve around her. Your time should be valuable. Your attention should be something she earns, not something you throw at her for free. When she realizes you're not sitting around waiting for her call or her text, she starts to think about you more. She starts to wonder why you're not always available, and that curiosity makes her crave you. The men women can't stop thinking about are the ones who have priorities, goals, and boundaries. They're not dropping everything just because she sends a hey at midnight. They respect their own time, and in doing so, they make her respect it too. And respect always fuels attraction. So, if you want to be the guy she thinks about nonstop, stop overgiving your presence. Don't always be the first to reply. Don't always say yes to every plan. Show her, through your actions, that you have a life worth living outside of her. That's what makes her wonder about you when you're not around. That's what makes her replay your last conversation. That's what keeps you in her head when you're not in her sight. Remember this. Availability is comfortable, but scarcity is powerful. 3. Emotional imprints. Stick, not gifts or texts. A lot of men believe that women remember the things they give them. They think a woman will never forget the expensive dinner, the fancy gift, or the long, sweet message they wrote at 2 a.m. The truth? Those things fade faster than you realize. What actually stays with a woman, the thing that makes her think about you non-stop, is the emotional imprint you leave behind. Think about it. If gifts and material things were enough to hold a woman's attention, then every man with money would have women obsessed with him forever. But how many stories have you heard about wealthy guys getting cheated on or dumped? Plenty. Because women don't stay connected to what you buy them. They stay connected to how you make them feel. Emotions create memory. When a woman laughs with you until her cheeks hurt, that sticks. When she feels a spark of excitement from the way you look at her, she replays it later. When you make her feel safe, but also challenged, that balance leaves a mark. That's why the most unforgettable men aren't always the richest or the best looking. They're the ones who know how to stir emotions that go beyond the surface. This is where many men go wrong. They focus too much on logic and effort, trying to convince a woman to like them. But attraction isn't logical. It's emotional. She doesn't think about the guy who sends her the longest good morning paragraph every day. She thinks about the guy who said one thing that stuck in her head. The guy whose energy gave her butterflies. The guy who left her wondering what he really feels. So, if you want a woman to think about you, stop worrying about impressing her with stuff. Start paying attention to the experiences and emotions you create. Are you making her feel excited, curious, seen, or inspired? Or are you just checking boxes, hoping she notices your effort? Here's the bottom line. Women don't think about the man who gives them the most. They think about the man who makes them feel the most. That's the emotional imprint that keeps you in. 4. The silent pull of confidence. If there's one trait that keeps a woman thinking about you more than anything else, it's confidence. Not the loud, in-your-face kind that tries to dominate every room, but the quiet, steady confidence that speaks for itself without you saying a word. Women notice it immediately, and it lingers in their minds long after you've left. Confidence is attractive because it's rare. Most men try too hard to prove themselves, whether through bragging, over-explaining, or chasing validation. But true confidence doesn't need an audience. It's the way you carry yourself, the way you look people in the eye, the way you stay calm under pressure. A confident man doesn't rush to fill every silence, and he doesn't need approval to feel valuable. That energy is magnetic. Why does this make a woman think about you non-stop? Because confidence is tied to security. A confident man makes a woman feel like she can relax, like she doesn't need to control everything. That feeling stays with her. She might not even be able to explain it, but she knows she felt something different around you, and that difference keeps you on her mind. Now let's be clear. Confidence is not arrogance. Arrogance is about putting others down to feel bigger. Confidence is about knowing your worth without needing to prove it. Women can spot the difference instantly. Arrogance pushes them away. Real confidence pulls them closer. Another part of confidence that women can't forget is decisiveness. When you know what you want and you move with purpose, it stands out. Most men hesitate, second-guess, or look for her approval before making a move. But when you're the man who leads with clarity, you leave a mark. She'll remember how decisive you were and wonder why other men don't move like that. And here's the key. Confidence doesn't mean being perfect. In fact, trying to appear perfect is the opposite of confidence. Confidence means you're okay with your flaws, you're comfortable with who you are, and you don't need constant reassurance. That comfort in yourself creates comfort for her. And that's what keeps her thinking about you long after the conversation ends. Bottom line, women can forget your words, your looks, even your money. But they never forget how your confidence made them feel. 5. Unpredictability. Keeps her hooked routine is comfortable, but comfort isn't what keeps a woman thinking about you. What keeps her hooked, what keeps her mind circling back to you, is unpredictability. Not the kind where you're unreliable or flaky, but the kind where she can't fully predict your next move. That unpredictability creates excitement, and excitement is addictive. Most men fall into the trap of being predictable too quickly. They send the same good morning text every day, plan the same kind of dates, and react to her in the same way over and over again. At first, she might appreciate the consistency, but soon it becomes background noise. She doesn't have to wonder about you because she already knows what's coming. And once she can predict you completely, you stop living rent-free in her head. Now imagine a different situation. A man takes her out, not to the same old restaurant or bar, but somewhere that feels fresh and unexpected. Maybe it's a rooftop spot with live music, or maybe he invites her to something she never thought he'd enjoy, like a hidden art gallery or a late-night walk in the city. That simple twist, that break from the routine, gives her something to think about long after the date is over. Or, picture this. Instead of always replying instantly to every text, he sometimes takes his time. Not because he's playing games, but because he's actually living his life. She can't predict whether he'll be free or busy, and that unpredictability makes her curious. She starts wondering what he's doing, where he's at, and why he's not glued to his phone. And in that wondering, she's thinking about him. Unpredictability also shows up in conversation. If you always respond in the same polite, expected way, you're forgettable. But if you throw in a witty remark, tease her lightly, or take the conversation in a direction she didn't expect, you stand out. She replays it in her head because it wasn't what she saw coming. The point here isn't to act random or confusing. It's to break away from patterns that make you predictable. The more she can't quite put you in a box, the more she thinks about you. Women crave excitement, and a man who brings that excitement without trying too hard becomes unforgettable. Bottom line, don't be the guy she can read like a children's book. Be the man who keeps her guessing, in a good way. That unpredictability is what makes her check her phone twice, replay your words, and wonder what you'll do next. 6. How your absence becomes her obsession. Here's something men rarely want to hear. Sometimes it's not your presence that makes a woman think about you. It's your absence. The moments when you're not around, when you're not texting, when you're not calling, that's when her mind starts to wander. And if you've created the right foundation, your absence becomes the spark that makes her obsessed. Think about it. When you're constantly available, she doesn't get the chance to miss you. She doesn't have space to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, or what's on your mind. But when you step back, when you allow silence to exist, suddenly she's faced with that space. And people fill empty spaces with thoughts. If you've left a strong emotional impression, she'll fill that space with thoughts of you. Absence works because it creates contrast. If you're always present, she takes you for granted. If you pull away completely with no connection, she forgets you. But if you balance presence with absence, you hit that sweet spot where she's hooked. She has just enough of you to want more, but not enough to feel fully satisfied. That's the tension that keeps her replaying your conversations, checking her phone, and wondering when you'll show up again. This doesn't mean you ghost her or disappear in a childish way. It means you don't smother her with constant attention. It means you prioritize your own life, your goals, your friendships, your growth, so she naturally feels your absence without you having to force it. When she knows you're not sitting by your phone waiting, she starts to wonder what you're up to, and that wondering turns into thinking over and over again. The beauty of absence is that it magnifies the presence. When you do come back around, when you do send that text or show up for that date, it feels stronger because it wasn't constant. It's the same reason a song hits harder after silence, or why a break in the routine makes something feel exciting. The gap is what makes the return powerful. Men who understand this never beg for attention. They don't need to chase. They let a woman feel the space, because they know that space is where attraction grows. A woman doesn't think non-stop about the man who never leaves her side. She thinks about the man whose presence she values, because she actually gets the chance to miss it. 7. The harsh truth. Stop trying too hard. If you really want a woman to think about you, non-stop, here's a truth that might sting. You've got to stop trying so hard. Most men kill attraction because they overdo it. They overtext, overpraise, overshare, overinvest, thinking the more effort they pour in, the more she'll like them. But that's not how it works. The harder you try, the more you signal that you're chasing her approval, and nothing kills a woman's curiosity faster than a man who looks desperate for it. Here's the harsh reality. Effort doesn't automatically equal attraction. You can do everything right on paper, always being available, always buying her things, always complimenting her, and still be invisible in her thoughts. Why? Because none of that makes her feel anything special. Instead, it makes you blend in with every other guy doing the same thing. A woman thinks about the man who doesn't need her validation to feel valuable. She thinks about the guy who's not begging for her attention, but living his life with purpose. That man's energy stands out. It says, I want you, but I don't need you. And that's powerful. That's what gets into her head and stays there. Men who try too hard often miss this. Attraction grows in space, in mystery, in the balance between giving and holding back. When you overcompensate, you smother her mind instead of sparking it. She doesn't need more of your effort. She needs more of your presence, your confidence, and your ability to walk away if she doesn't meet your standards. So here's your wake-up call. Stop making her the center of your life. Stop thinking that proving yourself to her is the path to her obsession. Start investing in yourself, your goals, your fitness, your ambitions, your friendships. When you do that, you naturally stop trying so hard because your life is already full. And paradoxically, that's when she starts trying harder for you. If you want to live rent-free in her mind, shift your focus. Don't try harder with her. Become harder to forget. And the way you do that is by raising your standards, moving with confidence, and living like a man who knows his value with or without her. That's the version of you she won't be able to stop thinking about. What makes a woman think about you non-stop isn't how much money you spend, how often you text, or how nice you are. It's the feelings you create, the space you allow, and the energy you carry. Mystery keeps her curious. Scarcity makes her crave you. Emotional imprints leave a mark. Confidence pulls her in. Unpredictability excites her. Your absence fuels her obsession. And above all, not trying too hard keeps her respect intact. Here's the controversial truth. The more you chase, the less she thinks about you. The less you try to force her attention, the more naturally it comes. Attraction isn't built in constant pursuit. It's built in balance, in giving her just enough to feel connected, but not enough to feel satisfied. That's what makes her mind circle back to you, even when you're not around. Now, this doesn't mean you play games or act fake. It means you step into your value as a man and stop pouring energy into tactics that don't work. Women can't forget the man who leaves them with emotions, curiosity, and mystery. They forget the one who tries to impress them with effort alone. I want to hear from you. Have you ever noticed a woman thinking about you more when you stop trying so hard? Or maybe you experienced the opposite, when over-effort pushed her away. Drop your experiences in the comments below. I'll be checking in and engaging with you there, because these real stories are what help men grow the most. Remember, it's not about doing more. It's about becoming the man she can't stop thinking about.